Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name, do solemnly swear
Do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Block 2 of the Discovery Funnel. Here we're going to be talking about why. And another definition for this block is going to be life examination. And what is life examination?
Oh,
yeah,
wait, I have to look at it?
yeah, right? Life examination is really going to be you taking a long look at the past chapter of your life. So for many of you, that's going to be your military service. Then you're going to be looking at where you are right now. As you're turning this page into the next chapter, we're going to be looking at everything in this current situation. And then finally, we're going to be talking about, as you move into this next chapter, what are some tools for ideation so that you can start looking at possible paths you want to go down and using all of the information that you've gathered from your past chapter and current self to really inform what might and might not be good situations. And the last thing that I want to say before we move on is this is going to be a holistic look. Don't just think military career. Think your life during your time in the military or your life during your time in this last chapter.
Which is hard to do.
It is. It's hard to
It's
separate.
I didn't do that.
No, neither did I. I did eventually.
Yeah, eventually.
This first step that we're going to be talking about is going to be the past examination. This is where you are looking at the last chapter of your life, which again, for most of you is going to be your holistic look at your time in the military. And we're going to walk you through a couple of different steps and a couple of different items that we want you to consider. And during this time, we really suggest that you take notes, pause the video, take time to really think and marinate on these different things so that you can extract the most value possible from them. So the first item that we want you to think about is, what was your ultimate experience in the military? Your mountaintop, the time you were most friggin' on fire
Yeah.
for the military.
Yeah.
But the thing to consider is this is an external experience. This is something that happened to you.
The most awesome thing that I did was when I went to TalentX, when I was an executive officer of a company. The most awesome thing was it was a nighttime, unobserved, live fire range with stacked air between fixed wing and rotary wing. All right, so Wayne, what's all that mean, right? Here's what it meant, is I was there to coordinate and supervise and bring all the pieces together of 180 people, 180 Marines to do a thing that was fantastic and awesome, right? So this was to fly in the dark, get off, shoot targets, have helicopters and airplanes come in and shoot other targets, take everyone, get back on the airplanes and get everyone and all of our stuff back. It was just so badass being there at night, and the airplanes are coming in, the helicopters are doing their thing, Marines are having a great time, we're slinging lead everywhere, and I'm in the back, because I was an officer, sitting there, standing, figuratively sitting there, on the radio, two of them, like, your turn, go. I don't exactly remember all the pieces, but that was awesome. As I think, what did I love about being a Marine? Like, that's the event.
Yeah.
That's the event for me, because I wasn't in Iraq, Afghanistan, anything like that. So it was training, and it was just sweet. It was awesome. And what was your side? Come on, super nerd. Gotta like get into
the time that we got gaming chairs for the operating room. It was awesome. Yeah.
Gaming chairs.
Yeah, it was super comfortable. Lots of lumbar support. Yeah. Yeah, we wore combat patches that day too, because we remoted into servers in Afghanistan.
Okay, we got to move on. Let's not get into that. So ultimate experience, though, right? It was the very top of what I participated in. And I think what's important too, when you think about what is the top, what's behind that? Tell me more. I think that's the question you ask yourself. Tell me more. A little bit more about that. What's behind that? And so for me, we'll go in this specific situation, right? So the specific situation is that we have all these different actors and players that were coordinating with different specialties and skill sets and responsibilities. Well, what about that was awesome? Well, what about that was awesome to me was getting everything to fit and to work together and to bring this team together to accomplish something that we couldn't have done, I felt, without the integration work that I had been a part of. And so that's like what's behind that, because it's not just brainwash. Hey, I can help get guys in the right place to shoot things. It's what about that? It's getting all these people to work together. What about that? Right. And that's the external piece that was the ultimate high for me.
And something that I really want to highlight to all of you is that a trap that people in the military can certainly fall into is you look at your time in the military as, oh, that's just military stuff. And if you take the time to dig a little bit deeper, just like Buster did, you're going to see like there are feelings, there are motivations that exist underneath that are applicable to any job or any situation, not just the military. So really try not fall into that trap. And so the next piece that we want to look at is the flip side of that, which is your bottom, like the worst experience. The, again, external, something that happened to you, the worst possible thing. So for us in the Air Force, like the air conditioning goes out. But I don't know, like Marines, maybe it's a little bit different. Yeah, like absolute low. But what about you?
So as I thought about this, like what was the ultimate low? And this is taking out the aspects of real loss, right? But it's like ultimate low of the experience at large. So the low of being a Marine on an event that I saw often. Okay, and for me, this was when I was deployed with the 26th MU. We were off the coast of Northern Africa, and we had some Tier 1 and Tier 2 guys on the ship doing stuff, right? And it was the least fun that I had during my service. And after thinking like, why was I unhappy? Like, why did I not like that for those months on end? It was because I wasn't with the team that was the team, right? We were the C team kid, the fat kid who never got picked for dodgeball, because there was like way better, way cooler, way smarter guys ready to go. And so our little team was just like, hey, shut up and sit on the corner. Stay on the bench. You keep your A back. Stay there. No fun for you. It was terrible. It wasn't motivating. I wasn't inspired. The Marines were having a tough time staying engaged. And so I would say when I think of the career or the job, that was the lowest point. And I'm like, this is not fun. I'm not having a fun time for me. And so what's behind that? Right? This is the question where you're not just a brainwashed, belt-fed Marine, soldier, airman, guardian. Right? There's guardians now
Space
too.
Force.
So what's behind that? What's behind that for me is that I wasn't the guy in the arena.
Yep.
Right? I wasn't responsible for something that was really important. And for where this plays out, and we'll get to this later, is in my career that when I moved into consulting as a recruiter, I was the guy on the bench, right? I wasn't in the fight, and that's how it was in Mile End. And I recognized that I wanted to get into the fight, and that's the low, right? You got to know the negative, what you want to stay away from, right, as you try to design this next step.
And so to tie those two things together, and you're going to see this theme for the rest of what we talk about here in this past examination, is as you dig into these external events that either made you feel like you were king or queen of the world or absolute like the pits, maybe don't find opportunities in this next chapter that would simulate the bad things or maximizes the good things. Having that amazing, like that insight is very important. If you don't do this, you might be a pilot in the Air Force who hates being away from his family. But if you're not like thinking about the worst times of my life are when I'm away from my family, you might just go do airlines and then be away from your family all the time. And so you're just right back.
Those ultimate highs that we just went through and the ultimate low, that was inside of the experience with the Marine Corps, right? And it's also important to do that with your hobbies, right? Do that with your hobbies. What's the ultimate high hobby that you had? If it was surfing and you love surfing, is the ultimate experience that you have that's important to you outside of your job? That's important to know, because as we look to move further in the discovery funnel of the action, I know there's oceans of grain in Nebraska, but like you don't move to Nebraska if your number one passion is surfing. So don't do that. When it comes to your family life, my lower low in the family life piece is that I had just experienced a lot of deployments and a lot of training being in the Marine Corps infantry. And so one thing that was low there is that being away and the uncertainty of my schedule. And so recognizing what was bad, I knew then what I wanted to build in the future and stepping out. And it took me a while to figure some of this stuff out. Lots of roles where there's a lot of travel, sales, things like this. and roles that take you to different locations for the opportunities that you have. Not everything is remote now, even in a post-COVID world.
So we've looked externally. What are situations that you want to avoid in your next role or the next chapter of your life? Now we're going to look internally, and we're going to look at the best things that were brought out of you from your time in this last chapter of your life, and then what are the worst things that are brought out of you from this last chapter in your life. So we'll look at the best things. This is when you look back at your time in service, really think about my time in the military really brought out X in me. And I really loved that. And I really want to bring that forward into the next chapter of my life.
Bringing the on the inside.
Exactly. Like the qualities of you
Yeah.
that were brought to the forefront by your time in service. And you're taking the time to recognize, I love that I was a leader. I took responsibility for others, or I love that I was very organized, or I love that X. I was a great family man. And you're recognizing those high points that you want to take into this next chapter to help build this definition of who you are outside of the previous you.
Yeah, and so as I think about myself here, there's going to be a lot of similarities between what was external, what was internal, right?
Yeah.
Because they need each other to exist. And so for myself, when I think of the internal aspects that were the highest high that I really enjoyed, was working with a team that I got to stay with for a while, right? So this could be, again, in my career and experience in the Marine Corps Infantry, was being with a set of lieutenants and platoon commanders, the rest of the staff of the company headquarters, and then my role specifically as the XO. This was the ultimate role that I was in and really enjoyed. And then later on, helping to run operations for the entire battalion. And so what I got to bring forward internally was understanding what each individual desired for motivation. Like what made them happy? What got them to want to perform? What did they care about? And so what I wanted to bring forward was an opportunity and a space where I would have those relationships. One that wasn't cyclical and people coming in and out of the door, right? Like I experienced in consulting, there's different faces every month. And that was a downside, right? What I really wanted to find was a team that I was with often, and we got to build something, a great crescendo of a problem set. And so it was that piece. Another one I would say is innovation, right? Difficult problems, like how are we going to solve this? And it was with that team. So it would be, let's see here, if I didn't name some off, it would be this sense of mentorship or building relationships and rapport. That's one. Innovation, finding new ways to do things. And then, I know I say it a lot here, but it's this sense of coordination, getting these different pieces to work together. That's my personal story.
One thing that I'll highlight is if you recognize a piece of you that you believe was really good, that was brought out by your time in this past chapter of your life, you can recognize that was really good, but not bring it into the next chapter of your life. Or it can change in some way, shape, or form. The example that I'll give you is when I was in service, I really loved being able to take care of my family. I was leading, my wife and I were both in the military, but I was the one that was leading the charge on where we would get stationed. My career was taking that leading edge. Exactly. I was the primary role. And I felt like I could take care of my family that way. And I recognized that, and I really like that. And that still exists in this new, this new version of me, this new chapter of me still exists. But now I have picked a career that intentionally allows me to be highly flexible so I can support my wife's career. So I'm still enabling and taking care of my family, but it's in a new capacity. So it's a similar concept that's changed execution. And so you can leave something behind even though it's good, but it does help you define who you'll be in this next chapter.
I just want to dive into this here. So what you're saying is the role that you had that was important to you was being the primary provider.
Yep.
And what that meant is that the career movement geographically followed you. And that the future you stepped into, that your wife is still in the military, as the primary caregiver or provider, is that you went from being the person geographically constrained to the person that's not geographically constrained.
Exactly.
Like what's behind that?
Certainly.
So instead of following you location to location,
Mhm.
what's behind that? It's being able to provide
Yep.
the most flexibility now
Exactly.
to support the most constrained aspect
Mhm.
of your situation.
So the next piece that we want to move on to is going to be the flips. Again, it's all about the flip side. So we're talking about the worst things in you. And what are things that your time in your last chapter of your life really brought out that you want to avoid? You want to let go. And as you're defining who you are in this next chapter, you're just going to leave all of that behind. This could mean a lot of different things for a lot of people. And it might be painful to like think about dive into what these things really
Yeah.
really are.
Leaving behind. Well, I know something I should have left behind was this style of haircut,
But here you are.
but here I am.
Yeah, and you never let it go.
I can't shake it.
You
so
never let it go.
maybe in like version 2.0
Yeah.
of the Discovery
Yeah.
Funnel, we'll leave this behind. Sorry, everyone, you don't.
Maybe
get
we
that this
can
time.
crop some new hair in post.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, cameras, can you figure that out? Audio? Thanks. Okay. Look, like what I wanted to leave behind from the Marine Corps, man, like there was just so much I loved that this was something I had to think about for a while. And it was in this stage I had to think more holistically. Because what I wanted to leave behind, I eventually recognized that I wanted more autonomy and direction in my career. Right? It's a very belt-fed scenario of you do this, then you do that, then you go step B, and then step C, and then you're moving up, and you don't move up, you're moving out.
Mhm.
And that's very controlled. So as I decided to get out for family reasons and professional reasons,
Mhm.
that was one thing I wanted to leave behind, right? I wanted a place where I could have a lot of autonomy to earn a long leash
Mhm.
and then to build a career in the direction that I was exploring, right? So that was one thing leave behind.
Mhm.
The second one myself was, it was difficult on my family being away so often. We didn't think it was going to be tough, right? We thought that it was going to be fine with deployment cycle and all the rest. Then we got into it and it wasn't so great, right? It wasn't so great in my household. And so something that I wanted to leave behind
Mhm.
was uncertainty,
Mhm.
right? Now, look, there's certainly uncertainty. I got let go with COVID.
Mhm.
There was a lot of uncertainty with that.
Mhm.
But the uncertainty of being gone for a few weeks at a time. And so now my role is something that's much more geographically around family, right? So I want to leave behind not being by family.
Mhm.
I wanted to leave behind not having control or influence over my career and the different routes it could
Yeah.
go. And the last is also the family piece, like being around.
Because all of those, the uncertainty, being away from your family, what was that bringing out in you that you did not like?
It was bringing out stress.
Mm.
I'll say it's bringing out stress. And then even some part of resentment, I would say. There was some resentment later on that I'd uncover this
Mhm.
after stepping
Of course.
out. I didn't think I was resentful of the Marine Corps
Mhm.
when I was in. But as time let me shed some of the aspects of stepping out, I think that I recognized some resentment in there that was just a weight that we needed to drop off.
I would completely echo just having the autonomy to go out and choose. I was in a very similar situation in the Air Force where I was on a path in cyber and there was really no way to reroute myself onto a new path. And that just brought out a lot of stress and honestly headedness. Yeah, thank you.
got it.
In myself, where I was forcing my wife and I's careers in a crazy direction on this hope that I might get a taste of this one thing that I wanted. And that made me more stubborn than I ever needed to be. And so I really had to, once I recognized that, I was like, I need to find something that has me more control so that I'm not doing that to my family anymore. And so that's what that internal examination of kind of the lowest portion of you is going to be. And so
Yeah.
the last piece that we want to talk about here in this past chapter of your self-examination is really, why are you getting out of the military? Why are you leaving this last chapter of your life? And this is really important because there's really only two types of people that are moving out of the military. You chose to
Voluntary.
like Buster, or you didn't, like me. And this specific section is very important for both groups of people. I'll speak from my perspective, and then
Yeah,
Buster
yeah.
will speak from his. For me, I didn't choose to get out, but I did have to come to terms with it because it was going to happen. And once the way that I got to a point where I was okay with my service coming crashing to a halt is I had to figure out, okay, what are good reasons for getting out? Like, what is my life? What am I gaining here by being able to go through and say, I can get a job that allows me to support my family by letting my wife stay in and really succeed in the military. I can get a job that allows her to move wherever she wants. I can work from home because of COVID. I can take care of our kids, and I can still find all of these things that really made me passionate about serving. Once I recognized all of that, I was okay with moving out of this chapter into the next one. And so for all of you who might not be choosing to get out, identifying reasons why it's okay to get out is really going to help you build this picture and version of you in this next chapter of your life that's not you in the military, because it's going to happen. And as sad as it's going to be to watch this old version of you be laid to rest, it's going to happen, and you need to start constructing this vision of you and version of you that's outside of that,
On the other side.
on the other side.
Yeah. So what is the good here? Right?
Yeah. What is good about this thing that's happening to me?
And also what's good about the past.
Exactly.
Right? So like honoring the
Yes,
past
of course.
and recognizing the good
Certainly.
in the future. And so, I experienced the same thing. Why am I getting out? And so it was a collection of the reasons that we've talked about. This collection is the personal side,
Mhm.
personal career. It's the family side. I recognize that I couldn't be to the level I wanted to be the best husband, the best father, and then also the best Marine officer that I could be. All of those could not exist well enough at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I decided to step away from the Marine Corps,
Yeah.
which broke my heart. It's going to break a lot of people's hearts too when they step out. And other people are going to be like, great, I can't wait to get
Yeah.
out of here.
Exactly.
Right? But it's important to recognize the good that you had so that way you can have a proper ceremony
Mhm.
and not be resentful of the past or resentful of the future. So
Certainly.
it's very critical to do that. So running back through what we've just talked here, it is examining the ultimate high externally.
Yep.
Examining the ultimate low externally.
Yep. Air conditioning.
Yeah. The next is examining the greatest things that were brought out from you and the worst things that were brought out from you. Right? Take the time to not only figure out what that is and say, what's behind that?
Mhm.
What's behind that? To figure out yourself, right? And this will help to lay the foundation, understanding where you are today, to then recognize where you think you want to go. And then we work on getting there together.
And then the next piece that we're going to be talking about is going to be examining you right now. But to wrap this section up in a nice little package, all of this information is crucial in understanding places you should and probably should not go as you start looking at the present you and then into the future.